Hey folks, it's Carpo. I hope everyone's doing well. I can't resist but share this, share my videos. It's in my nature, and I'm not going to fight it. So I wanted to tell a little story about Buddha because I think it can resonate with everyone here in the West, especially those who are not that familiar with Buddhism. And it's a really fascinating story, but let me see if I can cram it into less than a minute. Buddha was raised in a rich kingdom with all the women and all the money he could want and everything, and he was going to inherit the kingdom. When he was really young, someone said he was going to be either a ruler of the kingdom or a wise man, so his parents tried to keep him sheltered. When he was 30 years old, he got outside the city walls, and he saw, on his first trip, he saw people getting old, and he didn't understand it. The next trip, he saw someone getting sick, and he didn't understand it. The next time, someone was dying. And then on his fourth trip out, he saw a spiritual master. And he decided to leave home and go in search of the truth. And from the time he was 29 till he was, I think, 35, he spent 6 years, I believe, in trying to attain enlightenment, and finally supposedly did. Now, Buddha went through a lot of different supposed, facets of life. He had gone through a stage where he spent like 5 years or six, eating, or 6 years something, eating just a grain of rice a day. The ascetics, which are those people who punish themselves and don't eat and live out in the elements and out in the cold and have very, very minimal. I mean, minimal, like a piece of rice a day and minimal water. Basically, starve themselves into enlightenment. In the end of that, he found that that was not the way, and he left. And then he sat under a tree and he attained enlightenment. And, the story's a lot deeper than that. My point is only this, that while many people consider Buddha this perfect figure or this enlightened, example of being, most folks in the West aren't really, unless they're into Buddhism, aren't really aware of the failures of the Buddha. And I think that it really shows who we are as humanity, and it's really something we can all relate to. First off, the guy left home when he was 30 and found enlightenment at 35, I believe. And I thought, hey man, it took me a hell of a lot longer than that. I spent 20 years searching for the truth of life, and I wasn't spoiled or raised like that. But that's not the point. The point is that he can relate to all aspects of human life. He understood the misery that came with being where he was, and he felt a need to understand the truth. Now, Buddha had a really cocky attitude about it, according to the writings. I mean, he would tell people not to follow him, but that they had to find their own truths. But he claimed to be a spiritual teacher, and the people followed him until he died. I mean, he could have pushed them away a long time before that. It's like, you've learned what you need, move on. Anyway, when Buddha left home, he left his wife and his newborn son. And that really made me sad, because it's such a beautiful story, and it really shows that the symbolism is that you cannot attain enlightenment without sacrifice. Which brings me to the point of this video. Every religion has its ups and downs. I'm not a Buddhist. I'm not a Christian. I would never be a monk. I like to experience life in all its flavors. The Dalai Lama himself reads quantum physics books. He's a scientist. He's really into taking things apart. He's a very intelligent man, and he wants to know why things are the way they are, and he realizes that, we'll say like Ram Dass, who was a spiritual guru from the West, once said, that he'd gone to India and he'd come back and he'd realized that we have to westernize the philosophies of the East in order to get people to take them on as their own here. Yoga has really taken off in that way, and I think it's phenomenal. What's sad is that a lot of people don't realize, they just think it's stretching and exercise, but really they're opening up their whole balance of being to the world, and that's fine. If that's what it takes for people to do it, that's fine. But Buddha left his wife and his newborn son. And a lot might say, well, they'll do fine, they live in the kingdom, they've got all this money. Well, and then later on in the story, I believe his whole kingdom was marauded by an opposing king and his army, and everyone was killed. And I thought, where was Buddha to defend his family? It really got me thinking about all the different religions and how Buddha is willing to fail and to be human in his story. Whereas, let's say, Jesus was this perfect man all his life. I don't know the complete story. I'm sure Jesus made mistakes as well. Don't quote me on that. The beautiful thing is that once you attain a certain state of reality, nothing can faze you. And don't be afraid for people to tell you, hey, you can't mix religions, and for you to stand up for yourself and say you can mix whatever you want. It's your life. You are your own life, so you're really in charge of yourself, and nobody else is. Buddha was a good example of how it shows how even a person as ignorant to the world as he could step outside, dedicate a little bit of time, and find their meaning to life, and fail along the way so many times. Nobody's perfect, and I want everybody to just remember that you are perfect the way you are, but not perfect in the eyes of what society tells you to be. So just be who you are and love yourself, and people will fall into line and love you too. Peace. Everyone have a great